my best friend Max Dale, when we got home, we was going to serve each other morning, breakfast, noon, and evening. And you wouldn't believe what's on that. But anyway, we went on from there. And I ended up in solid 7A. Way up in November sometime. And we'd work 6 days a week in Munich. They'd go by train. We'd go in there and fill in bomb craters, work bombed out houses. That was in November and December. Oh, see, you wouldn't believe all the. Sometimes they'd bomb in the daytime and you hope for better. And I can tell you another bad one. I was lucky. I come here today. Bombers coming over one day and they put us in an air raid shelter with the regular civilians, which is unusual. And there was some gal handing out cookies. And I was really ticked. I never got one. She had arsenic in it. And those guys all died. And well, that's where I always figure I was so lucky. And then, well, let's see. Oh, another one I've never forgot, Christmas Eve. While we'd work in Munich, guys would come up, maybe a trumpet or a saxophone or a guitar, and bring them. And so we had a church service on Christmas Eve. And that's one I've never forgot. They got together a band from these instruments that they'd picked up, and they played Christmas hymns. And the one always, every year at Christmas time, Silent Night, and the Germans, officers there, some of them had beautiful voices. We all sang Silent Night together. Man. That was the one that always bothers me at Christmas time. And then from then on, of course, we go to Munich every day working. And then it had to be April, toward the end of April. They had so many, had a lot of Air Force officers. And they needed more room, so they put us on the march. Oh, and by the way, with the Air Force officers, in 3 minutes, if you were willing, they would trade places with you because they always thought they could escape some way. And your only choice through the winter is through the Alps, and you're not going to make it through the Alps. And I always thought that. And on well, that's another thing, back up to Christmas. I was on detail for our Christmas dinner. That was horse meat, and there was spicy maggots in it, and potato. That was the big meal. But our normal breakfast was tea. And if you were working in town, there was a Leopold restaurant, and I borrowed a butter knife, and I still have it. I wish I brought it. I always said if I got back there, I'd take it back to them. And we would be in the kitchen, and we'd get a bowl of soup. That was our meal. As far as food, it was pretty slim. And I got to back up some more stuff. In March, the Red Cross got shoes to us. We got to do away with our wooden shoes, but in the wintertime, wooden shoes aren't very warm. But from there, then I got up into, I think it had to be in April, the first part of April. The camp was getting full of officers So they put us on the march. And we walked for, I don't know, I'm guessing over the month we probably walked, I noticed Augsburg, and we cleared the Czech border when I got liberated, but the real hard one to do was we were out in nowhere walking. There might have been 400 or 500 of us. And American plane was leveled over to the strait. And it was hard. We had to wave and hope they didn't. And once they realized it was who it was, because everybody was waving, they'd bank, roll barrel, and you could see them bank. They'd get low enough, you'd see them waving, and they knew where we were. And then we was a little town of Etrigan, and the 10th Armored liberated us. I've often thought, and then how stupid I was. I was going to get a vehicle because like half a mile away you see a whole bunch of vehicles. And I went out there and you never knew what you were going to get into. But I was there by myself and turned around and there came a whole bunch of Germans at me. They gave up to me. I didn't even have a gun with me. But they knew I was American. So I took them back into town, which was probably half, 3/4 mile away. And then the truck driver's there, and this one guy looked at me, he said, "You want to ride?" So I left everything. That stuff I didn't want to give up. I did have my pet here. I got way into things. I got to talk about this. Here's my little liner. Now that was, you had, when we were at Camp Nostalgic 7A, that was a lantern for our light for 120 guys. It's very, very sad, 120 guys in, and your heat was body heat. And they were three high. But they got a tablespoonful of kerosene a night, and when that started flickering, they would blow it out. Because they give us to understand if the wick burned up, that was tough. But that is much light view. That's better than none, believe me. But anyway, another one. Then like I said, I got liberated. Really, it was the 28th of April, and I always call it 1st of May. And this guy offered me a ride back, and I forget the name of the town, but I always wish I'd had something to write down, but I never kept on it. I always got got left up here, but any of you from Mercer County remember Doyle Sarver that was sheriff? Any of you remember him? But anyway, he was an MP. And he found out, he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "You say Lyman, because I don't know town of any size, anything." And Lyman, he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, where at Lyman?" I said, "Well, you know," he said, "I know Lyman." I said, "Well, it was Spencerville." And he said, "I'm from around Mendon." And so he sent some stuff home with me that shouldn't have been home, but they didn't check us like they censored the other guys. And then another thing, they loaded us up out in pasture fields in C-47s, and that's one of really, I'll never forget, one of my lucky ones. The plane ahead of us hit a rut wrong, flipped over, and started burning right now. We just veered to one side and took off, and we got up in the air, and everybody glad to get on a plane, and I don't know if it was co-pilot or whatever, all wanted to have a drink. Well, very few guys took a drink because they just glad to get out. Anyway, we had landed at Le Havre, France. I mean, these guys were partiers. They were about half buzzed then. And I remember they landed the plane. I think the wingtip had to be almost touching the ground. And they said, now guys, please get off as fast as you can because we got a date to Piccadilly. Anyway, then we, you wouldn't believe the guys had venereal disease by the time we got there. And if you had anything wrong with you, they wouldn't let you get on the boat. But I did. And then we shipped out, and we were out about, well, captain announced on the boat, now here this, there, and the war was over in Europe, and we're going to take off for Boston Harbor. So we took off on our own and landed in Boston Harbor. And to this day, I can't find out the boat we were on. I've asked different ones. In fact, I was in Boston a few years ago, and we were visiting old Ironside, I think it is. And I tried to, we'll find out, but I never did find out yet. But anyway, I was home 2nd of June, and they sent us to Miami, Florida. Stayed in the Roosevelt Hotel for 60 days, and that was 60 drunk days. And I always remember in the room when war was over in Japan, with Japan, whoever and however you were dressed, you went out and get a paper that the war was over. And there I was taking a shower, and I had to go out stark naked and get the paper. Nobody cared. But anyway, and then I got home, and I had quite a time. I had 8 drunk years. I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm sure that different girls I didn't want to date, and my parents wouldn't even let them go out with me. But anyway, I finally found my dear wife, and the story I got to tell about her. This is one I tell the school kids. I got discharged the day after Thanksgiving in 1945. And I did come to Walk. And now it's not true. Anyway, we just drove along, and here was this little girl hippie hopping down the sidewalk with her doll baby under her arm. And I pulled over and said, "You cute little thing, when you grow up, look me up." She was 10 and a half years old. And 8 years later, I was working at a little shop in Spencerville, called a nameplate monitor. And she said, "Here I am." We had our first date on Valentine's Day, and got married in November. Then I tell the kids, and I called it, there's 10 years difference in our age, and I called that robbing the cradle. Well, the next year the kids will ask the teacher, is the guy that robbed their cradle come back to talk? But anyway, well, we got married in November, and at Christmas time, I crawled up the steps. I was still drinking very heavy, and my wife threw her arms around me and cried and said, "I'm pregnant." And I haven't had over good buzz one since. And I've had a wonderful life with a wonderful wife. The kids are always for us.